Juneteenth. It's a holiday often called the Black 4th of July. It's celebrated with cookouts, festivals, historical reenactments, and it's one of the most important days in African American history. Juneteenth celebrates the end of slavery in the United States. You see, the U.S. Declaration of Independence stated that all men were created equal, but this didn't apply to black slaves. The move to end slavery didn't happen until Abraham Lincoln issued a law in 1863, almost 100 years later. But the news took more than 2 years to reach all parts of the country. The state of Texas was the last to find out. On June 19, 1865, 250,000 slaves were freed in Texas, marking independence for all Americans.
We've all been hurt at some point, even abandoned. Many of us have done the hurting ourselves. We get to the point where we don't trust anyone, nor do we feel worthy of being loved by anyone. Then there's that one person who just doesn't give up on loving you. Their love is unconditional. Their love stays long enough for you to heal. And then they promise to never leave. That's love you can count on. God's love.
Hey everybody, how you doing everybody out there watching with us, the PIC TV network, our News World channel is on right now. Push that like button, push that share button. We on all over the world. We want to welcome our special guests, those who are looking with us from Colombia, Mexico, Guatemala, United Kingdom, Germany, Panama, Ireland, Peru, Chile, Costa Rica, Canada, wherever you're watching around the world. We want to also thank you for our Facebook audience who are watching with us. Push that like button, push that share button. Those who are watching with us on YouTube, put the chat in because we want to know. New York is watching with us, North Carolina watching with us, Texas. We see you. We're going to be putting where you're from, where you're watching from today. We're so happy to come before you once again on the PIC TV network, on News World channel. And we have a hot topic, part 2. Coming at you right now. And we're going to be talking about tonight the hottest subject on the planet, reconnecting the generation. Yep, we're going to be talking about it tonight. I'm so happy to have our special guests with us, our panelists in here. These women are on fire. They're educated. They're inspiring. Inspirational is going to come your way. We're going to be talking about reconnecting the generation. What we learned growing up in our day. Now, some of these things are lost today. We're going to connect them right now. Hey, and these our panelists are so awesome. We have Michelle Cox. She is our public relations person from the PIC TV network. Michelle, how you doing today?
How you doing, Dr. Evans? Always a pleasure to be here and always a pleasure to connect with everyone. We're going to have a wonderful, fun time, and we're going to talk about some of the wonderful ways that we reconnected back then and some of the things that we're going to be doing today and what's happening now as COVID goes down. Now, we have some special guests with us. Number one, we have author Gina Gadsden. Oh my God, she's amazing. She created the DAG.
Distinguished Authors Guild.
That's correct. And so she's doing some amazing things to help authors. Then we have Rosalind Robinson. And Rosalind, we're going to be talking about all these things that we do and we've done as families to reconnect. Dr. Evans, back to you.
Yeah, I'm excited for all of you watching. Again, our audience is going to pick up, our numbers going to pick up, those who are watching around the world. Let's get into it right now. Reconnecting the generation. When I grew up, my parents were from North Carolina, mother and father Evans, who'd gone home to be with the Lord. Every summer, when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old, we always traveled down North Carolina to meet Aunt Una, Aunt Ruth, Uncle Dougal down Red Springs, because they wanted us to know their people. They wanted us to know our cousins, my cousins, Dooley and Chucky and Poo Poo. It was about 20 of them. We all get together. We eat the same food. We walk down the railroad tracks and pick cherries and play with the chickens. And it was so much love. It was just not a ball of love. Is there a disconnect? And I really think there is. And I want to start with, well, let's start on a positive note. Some of the great things that you grew up in your time. Take me, Michelle, back to the 12 or 13-year-old Michelle Cox and the beautiful time, the things you learned growing up from the elders around you. Let's talk about that.
Well, I'm going to take you back actually a little bit further because I was a little advanced for my age. So we're going to take you back to the 8, 9, and 10. I went to parochial school, Catholic school. I grew up in the Jim Crow South. So Black people then, we were connected as a community because we had to be. It was for our survival. And there I have 24 classmates that from the ones that are still living, about 20 of us, we still stay connected. We still reach each other. Now I have one special friend, my best friend, Audrey LaShelly Lewis Adams. We've been friends since we were 9 months old. My dad's a military man, so we moved from Boston to Meridian, Mississippi for his last tour of duty. And that's how me and Audrey got connected. When military people move around, they usually have a military family that they put them with in our day. And that would help them acclimate to the town. And so we were put together with the Lewises. And my mother would babysit me and Audrey. And then when Mrs. Lewis had Eric, the baby, she would babysit all three of us. And then once we got to be school age, Mrs. Lewis, which she just passed, she was 102 years old when she went home to glory, gave my mother her first job after being a stay-at-home mom in the Head Start program. But we had all this community, Mr. Arthur Henderson, Mrs. Elma McCune, Mrs. Scott, Mrs. Bishop, all these ladies and all the gentlemen, Mr. Lewis, they all looked out for us. And so the families helped each other. If a family was struggling, they would help each other. Our family got burned out when I was really, really young. And the Lewis family, the whole family Mrs. Lewis gave my mother clothes and a coat. Mr. Lewis gave my father, clothes. And the kids shared their clothes with my brothers and sisters. And those are the things that I remember coming up. Dr. Evans, back to you.
Yeah, I really feel like we need to share that information. We have to share the things that we learned growing up, because it's a disservice to the next generation if we don't share the beautiful memories of what we had coming up. I want to go to Gina. Gina, take me back to the teen Gina, to the Gina who was 12, 13, 14 years old, and some of the things you went through growing up that's missing today. We have to. I think we have to get your mic going, Gina. Your mic, Gina. We got to get your mic. Let me go back to Rosalind. Rosalind, talk about a little bit of some of the things that when you were growing up, Rosalind, what's missing today. There's a lot of things that are missing today, Rosalind, that when we grew up, we had our family make sure that we knew each other, that we stayed in touch with each other. Take me back to the 15-year-old Rosalind.
Wow, I can go back even a little further than that. I do recall my dad working sometimes 2 shifts and then driving to North Carolina all night to get us there to spend time with our grandparents. I recall playing outside. I recall using encyclopedias, which kids have the convenience now of Google and Siri and Alexa. We didn't have all of that. But it was just happy times being outside, not wanting to come in when the street lights came on. Kids nowadays, many of them spend so much time indoors, social media, playing the games. There's a disconnect in terms of just family structure. We're having dinner, communicating. There's a lot of texting and just very little conversation. So, so for me, it was family time, having dinners together, looking forward to KFC on Thursdays because my mom cooked. So we didn't eat out. So Thursday was like a treat day for us. And I think nowadays kids, it's the burgers and fries and it's just a normal thing. That wasn't the norm for us. We had dinner, we ate dinner together. My sisters and I would dress alike for Easter. We were different sizes and different ages and just more closeness, I think, and more connection. So back to you, Dr. Evans.
Yeah, there was a connection. Those who are watching and tuning in, thank you. We see chats coming in from YouTube and Facebook. And it's amazing. We have to go back to get the beautiful things that we grew up. Our parents spent their lives wanting us to know who our people were. That's Aunt Una. That's Aunt Ruth.
Yeah.
And one of the things that my aunt taught me, Rosalind and Gina, was to make up my bed. And I've been doing it for the last 50 years. I'm convicted. I cannot go out of my house without making up my bed every morning. This is religious to me.
Yes.
Because my Aunt Una, my Aunt Ruth, before she passed away, man, I had to be about 16 years old. And she said, make up your bed, David, because you never know if you don't make it up in the morning, whether you'll be able to make it back up in the evening.
Yes.
Always make up your bed every morning before you get out. When you get out that bed, make it up, because you never know when you come back home that afternoon whether you'll be able to make it up. And every day I started doing that. And I've been doing that all of my 20s, all my 30s, all of my 40s, now my 50s. I religiously make up my bed because she instilled that in me. So when we're talking about passing down those great traits and those great things, I think it's so important for us to realize that, we have to pass these things down to our next generation too. Michelle, come on back in. I want you to bring in Author Gina too. Michelle, come on.
Well, Dr. Evans, I had the privilege and the pleasure to meet Gina Gadsden. She's the co-founder of the Distinguished Authors Guild. And I wanted to bring her on not only as she's connecting, but she's connecting authors. She's giving authors the ability to have a platform. Number one, they have this amazing contest, and I'm going to let her tell you about it. Gina, welcome to PIC TV Network, and we're so delighted to have you here this evening.
Well, I want to thank you all for having me on. Thank you very much. Distinguished Authors Guild is a platform that's honoring African American authors. We know how hard it is and how much energy, time, sweat, and tears that you put into writing a book. And those books are out there that can help others. it may just inspire and motivate others to do the things that they want to do, or even to help them to heal. And so Deborah Rhodes and I came together and we decided that we wanted to put on a platform that would honor those artists, those authors, and really give them a day where we just shine on what they do. And so there's 10 categories for the books to fit into. And out of those 10 categories, we select 3 books from each category. And out of those 3 books of each category, we choose one award-winning book for each category. And every author in that category that wins that category, they receive an award with their name on it. They receive promotions from our DAG Facebook page. They also have an opportunity to come on to our podcast and talk about not only their books, but other things that they're doing. Because as an author, you know, we do more than just talk about, write books and talk about books. We do a lot of other things. So we give them that platform to talk about all the things that they're doing. And we just want to take that time and take that day to honor authors. And if you interested in registering for Distinguished Authors Guild Literary Awards Show, you're able to do so by going on the DAG Facebook page. There is a registration form there. It lists the criteria of what you need to have for your book to make it through those categories. One is to have no grammatical errors. I mean, think about an award-winning book. Do you want to pick up a book that has an error on every other page? Of course not. So it has to be free of errors. It has to catch the reader's attention, because that's what we look for, right? A book that you can't put down. So it has to catch the author's attention, and it has to be 350 pages or less. And so we encourage all authors to register their books. There is a $25 registration fee. That registration fee goes towards the readers as well as the scholarships that we offer. We do offer scholarships for freshman college literary students to help them to be able to get out there and do what they dream to do, and that's to write more books. And so as we grow, we want our scholarship program to grow as well. So we encourage authors who have a published book, it has to be a published book, to go onto the DAG Facebook page, open up the registration form. All the information is there. It walks you through everything. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at distinguishedauthors.guild1@gmail.com. Thank you.
All right. Now, Gina, now that you've introduced yourself and you told us about DAG, tell us about your experiences as a young girl back in the day and how your family connected and stayed connected during those times and where you grew up.
Well, I'm telling you, just thinking about those days back in the day, it just makes me smile. I mean, those were the good old days. There were traditions that we had that we grew up with, and we knew those traditions, such as respect your elders. You had to be in the house before the street lights came on. We had game nights where everyone in the neighborhood would come to one family's house and we would play games, Pokino, bingo, go fish. It was just just connection, just every family in the neighborhood connecting. There were times when every summer we would spend at the garden picking fruits and vegetables so that we would have fresh fruits and vegetables in our deep freezer. My mother never went to the grocery store and bought vegetables. Those came out the deep freezer, which came out of the garden freshly picked. Those things are so far and in between now. It's just, we yearn to have it again. But those were the things that connected us. And those were the things that made us a family as a whole. I could count from 5 blocks to the left, 5 blocks to the right, and we all knew each other. We all joined together on one street and we played cricket. We played tag. We played freeze. Those were the days where all the children were outside enjoying the fresh air, enjoying each other. And yes, we had our spats, but we all came back and hugged. And even to this day, I still have those same people in my life. Back to you.
That's what's amazing. Dr. David Evans, that's what connecting is about. And now when we talk about connecting, have we lost some of that? And so now we have to dive a little deeper in how we can bring it back. So I'm going to hand the floor back to you, sir.
It's muted.
Mr. Campbell is on with us today. He grew up with his family, and he's a family man. His mom is still alive. He goes up there to New York or New Jersey and sees his mom. He refused to put her in a nursing home. He refused to let his mom sit up in a place that she don't know anybody, or he's showing her the love right now, up in her age, closer to heaven than she is to earth, that she showed him when he was young. I want to bring Mr. Campbell on. Talk a little bit about why that's so important to you to show your mom all the love she has. Because we're talking about reconnecting the generation. I have 2 sons. I don't know what they're going to do with me when I get 80 years old, man. I don't know. I don't know what Stephen A is going to do with me. Well, Ben, tell us about, because I felt the same way. I said I would never have my mother and dad and to do that. I was showing all the love I can. Mr. Campbell, come on in, bro.
Greetings, Doc, and everybody. Thank you so much for the time, the opportunity. You know, they're going to do exactly what you show them. They're going to do what the love that you share with others. They're going to share with you that very same love. I don't understand what a nursing home is. I don't understand why I would put my mother in a nursing home, because that's just not how we grew up. I know why they exist, because some people don't have anybody, but there are families out here where, coming from the Caribbean, we're used to tight spaces. We're used to living in New York City where there's tight spaces. We're used to growing up and we make it work, make it happen. There's some folks who live in the South, and being in the South, we're not accustomed to or understand why there was an apartment in those tight communities, because they're used to having a big house, used to having space. So when I first went to the South, folks would tell me that there is a disconnect. Why would they pay $500,000 for a condo or an apartment or a townhouse when for $500,000 they can get 15 acres? So being able to work within tight spaces where our families would come together and would live together. That's one of the things that I was very clear about with when I met my wife. It was my mother's going to be living with me. She said, good, because my parents are going to be living with us too. So I was like, okay, good. We had that understanding. We're just family. You just have to. I wouldn't want anybody else to be responsible for my mother and her care than myself. Now, I may not have the time, the ability, the whatever it takes. So yes, we might hire a nurse that comes to the house, but getting up, making breakfast. If I'm making breakfast for my son, making breakfast for the family, making breakfast for mom. But I can tell you one thing, Doc, the Caribbean people and the folks from the South, they live a lot longer than the folks of today. They're a lot stronger than the folks of today. So you can think that you could put your folks in a nursing home. They from the South, they from the Caribbean, they from Africa. They are not having it. They can handle their own business, get up to their own thing. They're strong, sound mind. So sometimes you need help to have somebody come in and help you, but just to place them in a facility that you can't guarantee the kind of care they're going to get, it to me just my conscience would not allow me to just sit with that. So being able to have my son around my mom, being able to have my mom and get the advice and talk to her, be more communication with her, and my goal is to make the next 20 years of her life the best 20 years of her life ever. So it's not for her to work. She's not a babysitter. She is just chill. Just wants to be mom, relax, play the role of being, in charge, large and in charge, matriarch. Handle your business, just oversee things, and she has no problems giving advice. That's what your job is. So with that being said, that's just how it should be, and I yield.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's the same type of love I have, man, for my parents who raised me. I'm the baby boy out of 9 kids. I was close to my dad. I mean, I can remember, I don't know if any of you know about this, sleeping between your mother and your father, and you're like in the middle of an elephant. I mean, I don't care what happens outside, a storm can be going on, but when mom is here and dad is here and you're in the middle, man, it just put a big old smile on my face, man. I was just smiling forever, man. I was smiling all day long. Right? In front of them, nothing could hurt me, y'all. I was smiling from ear to ear when those days. I just felt so comfortable because I was feeling the comfort of my parents. Some people never had that. I want to ask Rosalind. I want to twist it a little bit, Rosalind, because I know you can handle this. Is there a time when you have to put your parents in the facility? Because you got millions of people watching this broadcast, millions. You got parents with Alzheimer's. You got parents who up in age. Is there a time when you say, I'm going to give them into more professional care, and you put them there, Rosalind, even though your heart don't want to do it? Talk to us, Rosalind.
Your mic.
And I agree with Ian. I took care of my mom. She never went into a nursing home. I did get some help. I have sisters as well, and my son and nieces and nephews. But perhaps depending on a person's lifestyle and family or lack of, if a person becomes violent, maybe they can't manage that person. I don't know. Personally, my father has mild stages of dementia, and we take care of him. I can't imagine putting him in a facility and having someone else care for him, but I can't say in the future if something happens where we can't manage at home, because my father's 6'4" and I'm 5'6", so trying to care for him and manage, I think I would probably resort to having someone come out to help us out. But I have heard of parents becoming violent, throwing things and forgetting who their loved ones are. So it's a very delicate situation. I think it depends on connections that people have with their parents. My parents were married for almost 60 years, and I just know love and connection. And my father took care of us. I only have sisters. He took care of my mom, so I know what love looks like. And personally, unless I wasn't able to care for him, I can't imagine putting him into a facility. So that's just my personal opinion. So back to you, Dr. Evan.
Yeah, I feel the same way with you guys because I wasn't raised like that. I was sitting in Bible college, at Washington Bible College. Man, I'm going back to the 80s. And they asked that question. What do you do when your parents get old and they can't do for themselves? And I stood up and said, I will never. Because I know the love that my mother and father, they gave me the best of everything. They showed me that no matter what, they're going to be there for me. They're going to protect me. They're going to watch over me. They gave me everything they had. So automatically I said, no, my parents, until I leave this earth, I'm going to be there for them. I wish I had one more day with my mom. I would give up everything. One more day with my dad. Because being a family of 9 kids and the baby boy coming from the South, I knew Aunt Una. I ate her food. I knew Aunt Ruth in Philadelphia. When I graduated from Cardozo in high school in 1981, I said, I'm going to get on the Amtrak train. I was just about going to 17, 18 years old. I said, I'm going to spend the summer with Aunt Ruth. Because that was just in me. I went up there and spent the whole summer with my aunt and slept with her and ate with her and laughed with her and my cousin Denise. But there is a disconnect today, and I want to get into that part of it, Michelle, and I want you to pass this mic down to everybody else, Michelle. This generation is the don't judge me generation. They busy on the internet, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LiveMe, all of these apps are up here. And a lot of them just say, I don't even have time. Man, that's old folk stuff, man. I got to live my life now. There is a disconnect. There is, because we didn't have a device called Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We didn't have a device that never goes off 24/7 in our hands. We had to talk and we had to socialize and we had to sit down. You know, I want to go to Michelle, and I want Michelle to pass this mic today. You know, I'll often ask you about the artificial intelligence and everything we in today. Has it really hurt us, and has it really helped disconnect the generation, Michelle?
Well, let's think of it this way, because while we do have technology and we have more technology than we had, let's think about where the real disconnect happened. The real disconnect happened, number one, when we had drugs come into our community. There was a ripping away of family. The other thing was, every time young men get sent off to war, there's another way that it disconnects the family. You have children that haven't seen their fathers until they're 2, 3, and 4 years old. So we have to talk about that before we talk about technology. Now, does technology play in the ripping of some families? Yes, to a point. The other part of it is, are we parenting our children? Or are we letting the TV parent our children? Are we dependent on the school system to parent our children? Because it's our total conscious responsibility to make sure that our children, number one, know God, know their community, know their family. And are we letting them raise themselves? And anytime we have a child that we let raise themselves and they dictate, unfortunately, this is going to be where the disconnect is, because they're going to be more attached to technology than they are to us as a human family. And also, let's bring in one more point. When my mother was a young parent, my father worked, my mother stayed at home with me until I was able to be school age. A lot of parents don't have the means or didn't have the economic means to do that. And that's another way that there was that disconnect. And the kids learn the same thing, because what's happening now is everybody's after, as the children say, I'm after the bag, I'm after the bag, I'm after the bag. And they forget and they don't know how to relate. And some of it is, we have these whole issues on mental health in our family because we didn't have these kids proper relationships. But I'm going to pass this over to Gina Gadsden and get her view on it. Gina, tell us your view.
Well, you know, one of the goals that I have with my books is to put books back in the hands of children because of what I see. When you go out to dinner, you look around, what do you see? You see everyone on.
Gina, if we've lost your feed, try it again.
You see everyone on the phone instead of going out to dinner and having a conversation to bond and have interaction with each other. Instead, everyone's on the phone. And so that's technology has, in a sense, taken away from some of our socialism, because now everyone relies on technology. You have children raising children. And so in order to have their space and have their time, their personal time, they give them a iPad to keep them quiet, or they sit them in front of a television to keep them quiet. And guess what? The pandemic didn't help any. Now we have everyone sitting in front of the computer doing everything. I think back to this past school year when I had my grandchildren and they were all doing e-learning. They range from the age of 11 all the way down to the age of 6. The 6-year-old and the 7-year-old did not do well in school at all. When they finally opened it up where they could go back to school, their grades shot up. They ended up being the number one children in the class because I knew that they weren't getting what they needed in order to learn. They weren't getting that teacher student contact, and that computer could not give them that. And so when they opened it up, I told the teacher, I said, they need to come back to the classroom. The older kids, not as much. They were able to handle it a little bit better, but the younger kids just could not catch on to that e-learning. And so that technology, yes, it has put us in a different aura than when we grew up. Back to you.
All right, now Rosalind, tell us what you think about this connection or this disconnection, and how technology, or just how life in general, is doing that to our kids, and what we can do to make it better. Rosalind, go ahead. Tell us what you think.
You were cut off a little bit, so I didn't hear. So yeah, I'm going to go back to what you were saying about the family structure, because for me, growing up in a household with both parents and my father being there, and having that father figure, and also my mom being a stay-at-home mom, taking care of us. So that was something that we just thought was the norm. But I think as the years went by, I taught in Newark, New Jersey, which is an urban setting. And many of those kids, with the behavior problems, I would have conversations with them. And in many cases, it's because parents were incarcerated or the dad was nowhere to be found. The mom, in some cases, was a good mother, but she had to work. So they were latchkey kids, or they were, like you were saying, raising themselves, or they would have, everything on their TV, all the cable and all the games and everything to keep them occupied. So I think that has a lot to do with it, just comparing my upbringing to what I've discovered with being a teacher for so many years and working with kids in urban settings. And even nowadays with parents having to work because they want to provide for their kids. But in many cases, the kids just need some interaction to go to the beach, to go to the park. We used to go to the park. We used to go to the beach. My father would just throw us all in the car. We'd drive to Asbury Park just to take a ride, family time, family trips, Sunday outings, and kids just missed out on that. So I know we're a product of heredity, environment, traditions. And then at some point, we take on things that, we're exposed to, maybe things that our friends do, or friends that, things that we see other people do, whether it's good or bad, because you have kids that come from good households, but they go astray. I work with kids who came from the worst possible situations, but they still wanted to learn. They still wanted to be someone. So, yeah, it's a sad situation when you really think about it. And it's a really deep conversation. So back to you, Dr. Evans.
Yeah. I have two sons, Stephen and Amos. I did the best I could to raise them up in a godly Christian environment, and also to make sure that they knew that their father's presence in their life was important. Michelle, you told me to drink the water. So that's what I did. Picking them up from school, I was at Washington Bible College, and I said, I was in Bible college, and my son was born. And my wife's working in the government, and we needed somebody to pick the kids up. And I asked my professor, I said, what should I do? He said, David, there's a difference between good and best. It's good that you're here taking classes for Bible college and getting your degree and things, but it may be best for you to be in your son's life. And I took time out to take Stephen. I did both. I took him to school with me. He was sitting out there in the library with the he rocking, and I was asking Miss Comfort, can you watch Stephen while I'm going to take my New Testament survey class or English, whatever. So he grew up in Bible college, but I always tried to be the best father in the world. Nobody has to tell me to raise my kids. I get offended, and I really get mad when people tell me how to raise. You don't have to tell me how to raise my kids. I am David Evans, and Stephen Amos is my heartbeat. Even though Stephen is 30 years old in California, I'll still stop the world to see him. And my son Amos the same one, because I believe being a parent, God has gifted you to guard that life. I want to put it over to Brother Mr. Campbell, who also works with me on the PIC TV network and also helped me in so many different ways. His son is my godson. He's only like 6 or 7 years old, growing out those clothes, doing everything. And every time I talk to my brother, his son is somewhere around. Why is that so important, Brother Campbell, in your life, man, in 2021, raising your son?
We're creating they're emulating everything that we do. If you are present, then you're actually writing onto them everything that you are. They're getting it through your DNA, but they're watching it through you. I'll be in the car, and if I'm in traffic, and I'm just like, come on, go. It's a bad move, because my son will jump in, yeah, go, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, hey, easy. Like somebody told me, he's like my Luther. Have you ever seen Key and Peele? He's my Luther. For the most part, I'm very reserved. I do my best to stay calm, but he's a wild man. He'll. I have to make sure I get him to breathe and take it easy and tone it down. So he keeps me in check, because I realize that if I step out, if I have, he's going to do what I do times 100. So doing the best that I possibly can is going to reflect on him in that same way. The same way you are the example for your children, Doc. You're present, you're there. You turn them into mini yous. So they're mini you with their own personality, but you're the foundation on which they built on. You and your wife and the people that you put them around, their uncles and aunts, but not, at the end of the day, it's you. Television's going to influence them, and they're going to draw a comparison. My son will tell me, he's like, Dad, I was, with these guys, and such was saying bad words. I was like, yeah, some people do that, but that don't mean that you can, or you have to follow them, or you have to do it. So he's like testing it. They'll test you out, they'll feel you out, and they're brilliant. Oh my God, the level of intelligence that these children are born with, it is out of this world. I had the pleasure of having 5 of these young boys in my vehicle, and we're driving, and I'm listening to the conversation that they're having, and I'm telling you, they are off the charts. It's like listening to 5 grown 50-year-old men. People do a disservice by not explaining to the child who they are, their grandparents, not exposing them to their history, their ancestry, not explaining to them why they gave them the name they gave them. What does it mean? Explaining to them what they do for a living, what work, what job they have, whether kids are sponges. They just want to soak all of it up. So if I'm in a meeting with a vice president of a country, or ambassador of a country, a king, a president of a company, whoever it may be, my son is either right there or he's on the Zoom with me. He's going to show up and will photobomb you. And, it's just one of the things that he's just always going to be present, because at the end of the day, I have conversations with him. I said, look, when you have your own business, you can make these decisions. When you buy your own house, it's how you invest money. I'm putting these conversations in his head now, because no one is teaching us these things in school. And if it's our responsibility, if we don't create the expectation in them now, then why should they ever develop that expectation if they've never been exposed to it? So he's going to hear it so much during his development that it's just going to be his norm. When he moves, he's going to move into his own house that he will buy from the money he will generate because of what he will be doing. That's the expectation. That's the thought. That's the thing. He wants to drive. He wants to drive right now. Like, when you become a certain age, that you can buy the car that you want to buy based on the money you've earned from the business that you've created, then you can then buy the car, or you can hire somebody to drive you around. He's like, oh, there's a thought. So I continuously to push the boundaries with him, because if we don't expose them to the possibility of greatness, of doing things, of owning property, owning real estate, starting businesses, being the president of their own company, traveling the world, being a pilot, being an astronaut, and actually put them in the position to actually do so mentally, then it's our failure, because they don't know. If they've never been exposed, you cannot blame them for not having that drive, that ambition. Now, some of them, they may or may not be interested, but at least you can say you expose them to it. They may get interested at 30, at 40, at 50. They may become their hobby at 65 when they retire. Who knows? But it's up to us just to continue to push the greatness in them and push them through. And I just want to associate myself with, everybody's, Michelle's comments, man, that were right on point, along with what you said, Rosalind. I take my son to the beach, to the park. That's the one word he knows. He can tell you where every park is. He can tell you the difference between a park and a playground. I'll take him to the park, or say, let's go to the park, and he's like, "There's no swings here. This is not a playground. This is a park." Like, he wants to swing, wants to play. He'll show me like, "There's no kids here. This is not. We gotta find a playground, Dad. This is just nothing going on." So everything that was said, and I love what Gina said about making sure all the kids get a book in their hands, because that's one reason why we created PIC, was because we wanted to get the kids a book in their hands, wanted them to read, and we wanted them to have positive programming, because it was so difficult to turn on TV and see what we're doing here, having conversations. Kids need to hear this, like sitting down, listening to their parents or grandparents. We need to be having these conversations, because at 20, of course, they're not thinking about taking care of mom. They're not thinking about that at 20. Some kids are, but most of folks are they're out to get theirs. They're living their life. They don't even know what they're going to be doing tomorrow, much less plan 30 years down in the future. No way. So there are folks who, I've always been that way since I was a very young child. I told my mother that very early as maybe my 6, 7, 8 years old. So it was just always, because I grew up with my grandparents. So I was living with my grandparents, and I was like, hey, I'm here. I'm going to do the same thing for my mom. I guess in my mind at 6 or 7, I was taking care of my grandparents, even because I was living with them. So I guess I figured I'd be doing the same thing when, mom was living with me. It was a thing where I just enjoy the opportunity to sit and talk to her, to hear the stories, to learn about people's names, because I don't know those folks. And even though I met them and around them, I was, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 years old. I'm paying them no attention. So when I hear the stories now, I'm learning more. I'm remembering my great-great-grandmother. And I've met her, I know her, but I don't know her story. I don't know where in Jamaica she came from. I wish if I could just listen to her story and ask her these questions. Who are you? Where did your parents come from? Who are your grandparents? Because I want to know who they are and where they come from, how they get here. Like all that we're missing. We're missing that. So I want to make sure that my son gets enough information that he can have a good platform on which to launch. Because without it, we don't give ourselves the credit from the lineage that we came. We don't give ourselves the credit for what we've created. We don't give ourselves the credit. We don't know who we are. And if we don't know who we are, then we're pretty much lost out here floating around and people can tell you anything. So to truly understand how great we are, where we come from, what we've done, we need to just ask some questions, talk to folks that came before us, ask them how they got here, ask them, what some of the challenges they overcame. We just need to learn. We just need to know and respect it. We have more respect for ourselves. So with that, I yield.
Wow, that's amazing. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask the panel the question: who's raising our children? We come from a generation that we had to be connected, like Arthur Gina was saying. We had demands that you had to come in the house when the lights come on. we had no question about going to church, Rosalind. There was no debate on Sundays. You going to church, and that made us who we are. So we're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to come right back right after this. You're watching the PIC TV Network, our new special coming on right now, and you're watching. Thank you for chats. I see them coming in. I see the comments coming in. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, Facebook. We're still on, so keep on chatting, keep on getting the information to us. And we want to take a commercial break, and we're going to come back right after this.
Juneteenth. It's a holiday often called the Black 4th of July. It's celebrated with cookouts, festivals, historical reenactments, and it's one of the most important days in African American history. Juneteenth celebrates the end of slavery in the United States. You see, the U.S. Declaration of Independence stated that all men were created equal, but this didn't apply to black slaves. The move to end slavery didn't happen until Abraham Lincoln issued a law in 1863, almost 100 years later. But the news took more than 2 years to reach all parts of the country. The state of Texas was the last to find out. On June 19, 1865, 250,000 slaves were freed in Texas, marking independence for all Americans.
Hey, everybody, we're back on. I want to thank you for your time, those who are watching with us. Again, our special guests who are watching all over the world. We thank you for watching the PIC TV Network. Again, our friends in Brazil, France, Argentina, Nicaragua, United States, Colombia, Mexico, Guatemala, United Kingdom, Germany, Panama, Ireland, Peru, Chile, Canada, the rest of the world. I done named these places so many times. I feel like I lived there. I just so many times. And we're so happy when Roku approved us to being on in all of these countries around the world. We're just blessed to be able to beam this around the world. This presentation is amazing. So some of you, we're going to get the time. Some of you probably just get waking up, getting your coffee together. Hey, want to say hello to all of you. We're coming live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. As you can see right behind me, the White House. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. Thank you for watching too. Everybody around the world. The PIC TV network, our African American network that's on. We have a hot subject that we've been talking about today, and that is reconnecting the generation. And when I talked to, I was in a setting, I think me and Mr. Cameron was in the studio 3 years ago before we started this network. And there was the educational principals and around the DC public school system. They were there. And I asked them about Cadoza, asked them about Banneker, I asked them about Coolidge, I asked them about Spingarn. They said, Mr. Evans, all the schools are in trouble. Wait a minute. This is the superintendent of this educational board and principals, and the superintendent, the highest person in there. He said they're in trouble. Our schools, our young people are in trouble. I was like, why? Why? They're not prepared. They're in a whole generation. They're in a whole different world that this device is a weapon. It can be used for good. It can be used to never goes off. This device never goes off 24/7, 7 days a week, where they can push a button and get anything from entertainment, from all aspects, to communicating. And for those who don't know, there's an app called Live Me. Most young people are on. They're on Live Me. It's the hottest app that's in the world for young people. Now, when you talk about reconnecting the generation, we have to realize that we have a responsibility as parents to safeguard our children, to speak into their lives, to take authority. God has given us that gift, and we are our brother's keeper. I believe. I'm going to ask a question right now that everybody on this panel know. Growing up, we didn't have a device like this. We didn't have GPS. We had a wall phone. And I'm going to take you back, Michelle. I'm going to take you back, Ross. And I'm going to take you back, Mr. Campbell. I'm going to take you back, Gina. And this is not pre-script. They don't even know this is coming. Name your phone number when you was a kid. Mine was 462-7457, 202-462-7457. I didn't need this because we didn't have this. Come on, Michelle, give me your phone number.
Now, I can't remember my phone number, but I remember my best friend's phone number. Mrs. Lewis had that phone number until the day she passed, and that's 482-6263. 26263 is all we had to dial, just the 5. We didn't even have to dial the exchange. And so,
pass it on, Michelle. Pass it.
Now, Gina, what phone number do you remember your first phone number?
Yes, I do, and my mom still has it. 949-3751. I have tried to talk her into cutting that phone off, and she will not. Now, she's only moved once in her life. We were in the house we grew up in. My mom didn't leave that house, and I think I was in maybe my 30s or 40s when my mom moved out that house, and she moved into a house that she built from the ground up, and she took that phone number right along with her. I'm turning it over back to you.
All right, Rosalind, what's your first phone number? You're on mute. Unmute your mic. And here it is. The phone number is 483-0587. Took me a minute. It's been a long time.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
All right, Rosalind, what was your first phone number? Do you remember?
Yes, 973-926-3963. And my grandparents in North Carolina, 704-483-5352. They had the same phone forever. So it's like it's just registered in my mind. Now, don't ask me my sister's phone number because I can't tell you. So nowadays, it's like just the name or whomever. I don't know many numbers nowadays. So.
And Ian, what was your first phone number? Do you remember your first phone number?
I can't remember the last four, but it's 908-442. I don't remember the last four.
But that was the connection, Dr. Evans. And everybody had that wall phone that had that long cord that used to get tangled up.
Yeah.
And I remember, but I had rotary dial. We had rotary before there was the touch tone.
Yeah.
I remember when we got the new phone because our phone guy is a family friend. His name is Frederick. And Frederick came and installed our phone. I was watching him because I've always been interested in technology. And he came and wired our phone, and he was telling me what the colors in the phone line meant, and the fact that here's an astonishing fact. The Communications Act of 1923 says that the other two lines, because there's four wires in the phone, those other two lines are for a national emergency. So everybody actually should have an old phone. That way you can take the other two wires, the white and the black wire. Yeah, that's right. White and black wire. Put them together and click your phone, and it'll take you to the National Emergency Database. That way, if there was any storm, any calamity, and all the systems were out, these things were out and gone, we would be able to reach somebody to get help.
I think 9/11 was the first time I realized that this is not a good thing. And they got rid of all the phone booths. So during 9/11, there was no communication. People were scrambling to find a hard line.
Yeah.
And getting rid of your landline, it's expensive to keep, but when you need it, it's a lifesaver.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, just so you know, every house is wired with, if you go outside, those wires are there. And you only need those two wires in a headset. You can literally strip the wires off, connect, blink, blink, and that will take you to the National Emergency Center. If you did it right now, they would ask you, they would tell you, this is the Homeland and National Emergency Center. What's your emergency? That's something that's been active since 1923, and it's still active today.
That's amazing. You know, I want to, before we close out this segment, we're living at Juneteenth, the 19th of June. I've been on this planet for 59 years. And I'm kind of ashamed to say that I never heard of Juneteenth because they didn't teach me that in Raymond Elementary School or Lincoln Junior High School or Cadoza High School, UDC, or even in Bible College or Howard or wherever. I just didn't study. I just didn't know this day existed for us like this. And I'm ashamed, Mr. Campbell. I'm ashamed because, you know, it was deliberately hidden from us. Just like everybody's watching us, you need to go to YouTube and watch the Devil's Peach Bowl. And that's when 20,000 African Americans were in a refuge camp when they were coming from slavery, were surrounded and killed. Right in America, right here. It's so much that is hidden from us. And we're talking about, again, reconnecting the generation. There's certain things that are just hidden from us, you know. And I want to ask Mr. Campbell, why is that? Why is that, sir?
It's systematic, Dr. Evans. It's if you want to control a people, control the information that they get. One of the reasons why PIC Television Network is so important is because we control the content. We're controlling the message. It's called television programming, because the message is to program you as the viewer, the listener. It's telling you a certain story from a certain perspective. Dr. Evans, if I were to tell you that your great 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 grandparents were of royalty, and they built were part of an empire, and they led a people to greatness, and they've, even during the time that they got captured, even during slavery, they still stood up, and they were leaders on the plantation. They led rebellions. They they came to Reconstruction and got elected into their office. They've written books. They've invented things, and your great grandfather was a certain individual who did some great things, and now there's you. There's a certain sense of pride that you would just emanate through your pores. You would walk taller. You would be telling everybody, young man, do you know that my great great grandfather, young lady, do you know this? You'd be forever walking and just talking nonstop, telling people how great they could be because your grandparents did all these great things. That's not information you want to give to a group of people you want to control, that you want to keep enslaved, that you want to keep dysfunctional. Instead, what I'm going to do is tell you that you didn't create anything. You're of no use whatsoever. If it wasn't for us and slavery, you would have never been civilized. So you should be thankful that you were enslaved. And as a result, you should be compensating the people who put you enslaved when you revolted, because you messed up the economics as they were only trying to help you. That's the message that's not being painted. If we are able to share with individuals that they're more than what they have been told that they are, and it's historically documented, point them to the record, then these individuals will not walk with their pants sagging, not feeling helpless or hopeless, but realize that in the middle of nothing, we can create a dynasty, because we did it before. We came through slavery, we came through civil rights, and now we're here. It's a turning point for us to be transformational and use what we have to build greatness again, because we've done it before. It's in our DNA. All we have to do is make a decision, and within 3 years, we can turn all this around. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I didn't want to get into that deep part of it, but I just want for 30 seconds, if you can, or 1 minute. You was downtown the whole week of the election. Yeah, and you asked me to come to work on that week, taking people from downtown to the Capitol, to the White House, downtown the whole week. You know what happened to the White House? I'm to the Capitol, because you were down there. Both of us from Washington, D.C. I called you that night. I'll never forget. And what you said to me about what we have to do to get the person out. And it was a crying shame. You know, and I say that to say this: reconnecting our generation is so important, because the image you just said make me feel like I'm bigger than the Empire State Building. To let me know that that's my image, because all I knew, Ralston, all I knew, Michelle, growing up was watching Tarzan, which was this Caucasian leading African, leading us in the jungle and animals. I saw that all my life. And that was my picture of Africa, was just a poor country with nobody and this white person leading. I didn't know any better until I got older. And it was deliberately put that way. So when I come back and ask about the Capitol's incident of Campbell, and while you were burning up that night, man, you was burning. You could put a fried egg on your head, man. You was so steamed up that night, man, and ticked off, because you knew if something would have happened, and it would have been a different seat there in this same house we're looking at right now. And I still got people today mad and say he should have been in there. Still today.
You know what's
So
interesting, Dr. Evans? We had a number of Black Lives Matter protests, peaceful protests that took place around the globe between Germany, Japan, the Caribbean, the continent, tons of protests saying that Black Lives Matter. In Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, it is the epicenter of democracy. We had Black Hawk helicopters coming down on peaceful protesters. You had nationalized police, paramilitary, tear gas, stun grenades, rubber bullets. I could have swore I was either in Venezuela, Nicaragua, Benin, some country that was going down, and not Washington, D.C. And for a couple days, weeks later, to have white men with Trump signs, Trump hat, Trump support, meet the president down from the Capitol, get charged up by the president who tells them to run up to the Capitol. He's going to be right there leading them. And then to watch them storm the Capitol, attack, just raid the building. And for people to say, oh, we had no idea this was going to happen. We couldn't have called the National Guard because, hey, we didn't want to have that image of the National Guards in the Capitol. When every image of a Black Lives Matter protest that was taking place, we had nothing but National Guards. The hypocrisy of America is basically coming back to bite it in the face. And as we go through this process, as we go through the next 3 to 5, 10 years, and they rewrite history, it's up to us to make sure that we tell the truth in the story, because they're going to change the narrative, and they're going to, again, be apologetic to the person who created the riots, the terrorist act. They're going to be rewriting the battle flag of the Confederate flag is parading through the Capitol. Never before has it ever done that. They're going to talk about how these people were tourists walking within a neat, orderly fashion that you couldn't tell what day it was. But yet the image show of the chamber of the House floor barricaded by Capitol Police, and actually people getting shot in the neck and dying because it was that critical. And the stories, the true stories that we have to continuously tell the truth about it, because they will rewrite it, because they control the narrative. They control the books that's being taught in school, the movies that's put on the screen, the news that we listen to, every medium they control. And it's unfortunate that we're not standing up on these platforms and saying counter to the point where they should feel embarrassed to continue to say these things, because the images tell a very different story. And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a moving video is priceless. It's matchless. So as time goes on, we will have to support more documentaries, support more news outlets that we bring on the channel, support more books that Gina and other people can be writing, Michelle and all. So we have to do all that we can to put the resources behind everything that we're doing. And make no mistake, we are being watched. They're watching to see just how powerful we're going to get, how organized we're going to get, if we're actually going to be able to rival what they're doing and compete with them for what they're doing. What they're going to do is either buy us out or attempt to discredit us, because we can create images, we can create pictures, we can create movies of putting you in different places, doing different things. We just have to be ready for it when it comes. And to know that who we are, if you know me, you know who I am. Doesn't matter what you see, you have to believe what I tell you. And that's what we're concerned with, is taking this image that's on the screen, placing me in another situation, placing you in another situation, saying that, oh, this person's alcoholic. They were at a sex shop. They were responsible for this terrorist act. And you're like, I was home in bed. we have to be prepared for that type of warfare, because that's what we're doing. We're creating revolution because we're changing the minds of the people that we're talking to, because they're hearing something different. We're counter programming. We're undoing the program. We're putting on all we got to do is drop a thought, and people may think, "Huh, wonder if that's true." That messes with the program, and they can't allow that to happen. So, PIC is a revolutionary concept because we're about educating, inspiring. We are informing, and we're keeping it entertaining. All those things come together is the drive of reaching out to our communities around the globe, not just here in Washington, not just here in the U.S., not just continent, but around the globe, because we're everywhere, and it's not going to stop. Once we're out there and we're on the airwaves, which we are now, you can't pull it back. That train have left the station, and we are riding that thing all the way through. So thanks. It's going to be a great ride. I'm glad you guys are with me. Guys out here in internet land, television land, computer land, welcome. Let's do it. Take it all the way.
You know, that is so inspiring. And you got me, and I'm the president. You still got me, man. You know, I'm hooked on PIC TV, man, because we control the narrative, as you stated. We have our own news channel, our own talk channel. And those who are watching, you can come on PIC. I want to ask Michelle before we close. When you first came on, you said we need this. I'm tired of seeing our Black men and women shot down. And we talked about George Floyd, and we honor him on our network, and we will. We got Cicely Tyson on one of our channels that we have a billboard of her. Michelle, why was this so important for you to stop your life and to invest in the PIC TV network to help reconnect this generation? Come on, Michelle. You said I'm tired.
Well, Dr. Evans, for those people that don't know, BET is not Black owned, even though it says it's Black. It's a Black channel. It's owned by Sony Viacom. Mm-hmm. So when they could have more positive programming, like they could have Christian rap instead of having gangster rap, they could have more positive programming that's geared toward Black excellence. That tells you how much we need it. We don't need to see that, you know, the news of the day is sensationalized and it's always someone Black doing some type of nefarious action. We know that census say that we're 13 to 15% of the population. Well, if there's a majority of Eurocentric or white people here, then they're performing a majority of the crime. But what happens is it gets magnified. And when Black children see themselves in negative light, they think that's all they are. And that's why I need to make sure that PIC came on and they were a living legacy. And that's why I stopped doing what I was doing, to make sure that I lended my resources to help this network to thrive. That's the reason I write books for children, because I want to make sure that when I see God, that I've done my job. When people look at me as a citizen, as a Black woman, that I've done my job to make sure that I'm representing the network, make sure I'm representing my people and uplifting. And that's what the PIC TV network represents for me. It represents uplift and inspiration. And that's why I had to get involved. I could not stand on the sidelines. And I give my time, my talent, and anytime I can throw in a few coins that I have, I'm going to do that to make sure that this network continues to thrive. And I'm glad to be here. And Dr. Evans and Ian, Gina, and Rosalind, thank you so much for letting me serve. Dr. Evans, I yield the floor.
Yeah, it's so important as we come down to our closing remarks that we have positive programming on the television that we own. We own the network. We own our news. Nobody has to come in and say, you can't say that, Mr. Campbell. We have to edit that out. You can't talk about that. No, this is the opportunity for us to have positive, educational people on television representing us with inspiration. That's why we got Bishop Noel Jones and other speakers on who are Les Brown and others who are on who are great inspirational speakers, motivational speakers. Then we have the best in information, the shots that's out here, the Pfizer, the Moderna, the Johnson Johnson, and then there's a new one. We want to know, how did you feel when you got the shot? I got my first one. I was okay. My second one is coming up, and those who haven't had it, it's okay. We're praying for you too, but we have to still be informed. People don't even know there's a new one out. Because why are we always the last one to learn things? Then the next thing we have is the best in education. Education is the process of learning. We have Roslyn on as a school teacher, myself, and we had the principal who is from Baltimore, is a part of our network. We have professional doctors and lawyers and teachers who are going to be on this network talking about diabetes, cholesterol, high blood pressure, that we will have professional folk on PIC TV network about money and finances and real estate, things that we need to know. If we turn on that television, that's why we have a job fair channel to help people to get employment. And then we put entertainment on the bottom. Most of us grew up watching Good Times. We watched Sanford and Son. We watched The Jeffersons. Great shows. Martin Lawrence. Great shows. Wonderful shows. The Cosbys. Wonderful shows. But we're trying to take it to another level where we have our people coming on watching a variety of things that we control the narrative from beginning to end. Ralston, why is that so important to you to have an African-American network that we can do things like we do and have our own news channel, news stories that we can present, subjects like this? Come on, Ralston, talk to us before we close. Make sure you're
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can go.
All that we've gone through the last year, we need some stability. We need some consistency. We need honesty. So I'm really excited about PIC TV. The future, I see a bright future. I want to be part of it, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, we have to do something. I believe this is a part of reconnecting the generation. Every time I go down and see the Martin Luther King statue, it does something to me. The Lincoln Memorial is over there. The monument is right there. The White House is right behind me. But when I see that, wow, Martin Luther King statue, I still get chills. I've been seeing it since the first rock came up to build it. I still get chills. And I make sure that people, we do tours of DC, they got to see this one. They got to see this because this is ours. It feels so good. Gina, how do you feel when you see an African-American television network like PIC TV and you can be a part of it? Come on, Gina, talk to us.
Wow, it makes you feel good about it. I mean, you don't see it very often. And so to have a network such as this that gives positivity, it just makes you feel good and to be a part of it. I mean, we need to keep hearing our stories. We need to keep hearing about our past and passing it on to our children so that they can pass it on to their children. We need to hear about our future and be a part of building it, not put where someone wants us to be. We need to know how we got here, what formed us, what made us the way that we are. We need to keep hearing those stories. And PIC Network is one of the channels that can do that for us. I mean, you talked about, Dr. Evans, you talked about not knowing about Juneteenth. There's a lot of us that didn't know about Tulsa. There's a lot of other things that we still don't know about because they're not in the books. They're not taught to us in school. But we have to be those individuals to continue to teach those things to our children so that it can stay alive. Yes, what Ian said is absolutely right. I was in a 100% in agreement with him to the point where I could feel it in my heart as he was speaking, because everything he said was absolutely true. And so we need to keep it alive, and we have to do it through channels like PIC TV. We have to do it through those because there's no other outlet. When we get to a point where we're overtaking that, just like Ian said, there's going to be consequences. So we have to be prepared for that. I think back when I was, when they were doing the protesting, and I ended up at a protest that I had not planned to be at, but God wanted me to be there. And so I ended up there. And there were so many young people there that did not know why they were out there. They just wanted to be a part of the crowd. And they had no idea what they were doing out there in those protests because they were never taught the past. They were never taught what was supposed to be taught in history class. They never knew what we know. And so they were just out there to join along. And I will support PIC TV because this is something that we have to continue. It's a voice. It's our voice. And we need that. I yield the floor.
Yeah, I'm so excited, you know, when I see everyday people, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. You know, the people today who came on the network are just everyday people. They're just people who want to make a change. And I believe we all born in this world to make the world a better place. One of the things we can do to reconnect this generation is to take action. When I woke up this morning, my tire was flat. I haven't had a flat tire since my truck is paid for. I never even had to open up the spare tire to look at it because my tires never go flat. But when I woke up this morning, for the first time in 10 years, my tire's flat. Now, I could have complained. I could have just got mad. I could have shook my head and said, this is sad. Why in the world? But I had to take action. I had to ask my neighbor, do you have an air pump that I can hook up to my ashtray to get a jump start? Just to put a little bit in it till I get to the Goodyear, till I get to NTB to get it changed. But I said, I'm not going to just put air in it because I'm going to get to the root of the problem. I'm going to change this tire and put a brand new tire on. So my goal was not just to get the air back in it all over again, because if I did that, I would have been subject to maybe another week or two it being flat all over again. Mm-hmm. Take action. Let's get to the root of the problem. I had to change the tire. And guess what? The man at the NTB today said, do you want to keep the old one? I said, no, you can have that one, you know. Because guess what? What I needed to do is to take what was down, replace that with something new, and keep on going. What we have to do is to reconnect our young people. Let's sit down and talk to them about our stories. Let's talk about auntie and uncle. Let's give them that rich history about Aunt Una, Aunt Ruth, Aunt Auntie, and the beautiful times we did grow up. And maybe one day something will happen like this before I close. When my son Stephen and Amos was like 7, 8 years old, and I bought them a Happy Meal from McDonald's. And we stopped at a corner and there was a homeless man begging for money and begging for food. I told Stephen and Amos to give that food to that homeless man. They said no. I said, give it to him. They said, Dad, I'm hungry. This is my Happy Meal. I said, give it to that homeless man right now. We rolled down the window, gave it to him, and they started crying. They cried for like 10 minutes. I took them back to McDonald's. I said, get anything you want. So they upgraded. They started getting happy. They got the supersize and all that stuff. And I said, guess what? Because that man has nothing. I can get you anything you want off the menu. And here it is. 27 years later, my son Steven called me last Christmas. I said, Steven, where you are? Now my son Steven's out there with Post Malone, J-Lo. He's doing stuff in the studio with Sony Records. He's doing stuff with something with John Legend in the movies. My son is big in Hollywood, 30 years old. I said, where are you, Steve? He said, I'm under the bridge. It's Christmas. I said, under the bridge? What's going on? You okay? He said, Dad, turn your phone on FaceTime. I'm giving away my clothes to the homeless people. Remember what you did to me when we took that Happy Meal? Now I'm making somebody else happy. Christmas Eve, my son is out there giving away his shoes and giving away clothes under a bridge to homeless people. See, once you do something like that, that impact could allow somebody else to realize that now that I'm growing up, now I want to bless and help somebody else. And that's what we're doing on the PIC TV network. We're giving back and not forgetting where God has brought us from. I want to thank you for your time, everybody. We had a good time tonight on the broadcast. We almost did 2 in 1 tonight. Let's wave, everybody. We'll get to your chats too next time. Shalom, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And remember Juneteenth. Remember the research. And don't forget to go to YouTube and check out the Devil's Peach Bowl. And you'll see a lot of history that you probably never learned in school. Because I did. Shalom, everybody. God bless until next time.
We've all been hurt at some point, even abandoned. Many of us have done the hurting ourselves. We get to the point where we don't trust anyone, nor do we feel worthy of being loved by anyone. Then there's that one person who just doesn't give up on loving you. Their love is unconditional. Their love stays long enough for you to heal. And then they promise to never leave. That's love you can count on. God's love.